Hi, it's Katrina. Many once bustling sites and structures that were abandoned continue to attract tourists, but these modern-day visitors are attracted for far different reasons than people who flocked to these sites during their heydays. From amusement parks to entire towns, here are 8 places taken over by nature. Number 8. Spreepark. Spreepark was built by the Communist East Germany government in 1969 outside of Berlin. The thriving amusement park saw 1.7 million visitors annually during the communist era and changed ownership but remained in operation after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Spreepark's continuation after the fall of communism was short-lived, however. The new owner, Norbert Witt, smuggled cocaine into the country inside imported ride parts, and his crimes eventually caught up with him. Spreepark was closed in 2002 due partially to Witt's illegal activity and because of declining visitor numbers. The property fell into disrepair and was swallowed by the surrounding landscape. Then in 2014, a fire started by an arsonist destroyed some of the remaining structures and rides. The park was sold to a Berlin company in 2016. Plans were proposed late last year to see what to do with it, and are currently being considered. Many of Spreepark's attractions have been removed, but a Ferris wheel, roller coaster, and teacup ride still stand, along with the crumbling remains of a restaurant, zoo, and cinema. For only €5, curious urban explorers can safely and legally tour the property every September during the weekends. Have you ever done this, or would you? Let me know in the comments below. Number 7. Hachijo Royal Hotel. Until the mid-1960s, it was difficult for Japanese citizens to travel abroad, causing the tourism industry to focus on domestic destinations. In 1963, the Hachijo Royal Hotel opened on the subtropical volcanic island of Hachijo-jima, located about 178 miles south of Tokyo, within the Izu Islands archipelago. The government successfully promoted the island as the Hawaii of Japan, as evidenced by its rapid property development and the influx of visitors that flocked there. The Hachijo Royal Hotel was the most extravagant building on Hachijo-jima. Its design was based on French Baroque architecture and featured imitation Greek statues, fancy water fountains, an outdoor swimming pool, and well-groomed landscaping. Soon enough, international travel became common among Japanese citizens. Hachijo-jima decreased in popularity as people went just a little further to enjoy lavish beaches in places like Thailand and Guam. By the mid-90s, the Hachijo Royal Hotel showed obvious signs of wear and tear. The island's tourism industry struggled to revive itself, but the efforts were in vain. The Hachijo Royal Hotel closed in 2003 after undergoing several ownership and name changes. Today, the structure is in a sad state and has rapidly deteriorated in a short time thanks to saltwater damage. Its surroundings are wildly overgrown, and what was once a well-manicured property now practically resembles a small jungle, with an occasional crumbling statue or empty pool or fountain poking through the vegetation. Even the hotel's sign is blocked by plant life, and the stairway leading to the entrance is covered in moss. Number 6. Chaiten. In May 2008, the Chaiten volcano in Chilean Patagonia erupted violently after sitting dormant for over 9,000 years, hurling ash to an altitude of more than 10 miles high. It was the first rhyolitic eruption to be observed in modern times. Rhyolitic eruptions are highly explosive, causing magma to spew catastrophically. Volcanic ash rained down on the town of Chaiten 6 miles away, and mudflows caused the nearby Blanco riverbanks to burst, turning one of the town's streets into a new channel. Around 5,000 residents were evacuated. Buildings were buried in up to 5 feet of sediment, and the nearby airport and marine facilities sustained extensive damage. Today, Chaiten remains deserted and uninhabitable, and its former residents are afraid of returning anyway. I mean, after all, who can blame them? They reported that earthquakes had gotten stronger and more frequent in the days leading up to the eruption, but had failed to realize the tremors were a sign of impending volcanic doom. They weren't the only ones who failed to make this connection. Even the Chilean Geological Survey considered the volcano a non-threat and wasn't monitoring it prior to the eruption. The settlers who founded Chaiten in 1940 were also unaware of the nearby danger. In response to the eruption, the Chilean government relocated the former residents of Chaiten and began working closely with scientists to develop a nationwide plan for addressing volcanic hazards. Number 5. Rolling Acres Mall. The advent of online shopping was a welcome convenience for most Americans, but had a devastating impact on many shopping malls throughout the country, causing an era that is referred to in hindsight as the retail apocalypse. As internet sales grew, the massive, once thriving Rolling Hills Mall in Akron, Ohio, slowly began resembling a ghost town, with less and less of its retail space being occupied. It finally closed in 2008 after a decade-long decline and amid threats to cut the electricity due to non-payment. A few department stores remained open, with the last of them, a JCPenney outlet store, closing in 2013. The former shopping mall, which once housed 140 businesses, including a cinema, became one of the most famous abandoned places in the United States. The destruction caused by nature was evident from the parking lot, which was overrun with weeds. Inside, the lack of upkeep took an obvious toll, with everything from plant overgrowth to flooding. During wintertime, snow fell in through the broken skylights, covering the escalators and floor below. The mall became a safety hazard. One man was electrocuted in 2011 while trying to steal copper wiring, and a murder victim was found on the property the same year. Finally, in 2016, most of the rotting structure was demolished. Ironically, as if to mark the victory of online business over the shopping mall, the property is slated to become the site of a 700,000 square foot Amazon fulfillment center. Talk about rubbing salt in the wound. Number 4. Fukushima. In March 2011, a powerful earthquake near the Japanese coast damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. A nuclear meltdown ensued, and the nearly 100,000 people living within 18 miles of the disaster were evacuated. None of the evacuees have been allowed to return home, and travel to the Fukushima exclusion zone is strictly regulated. In 2017, photographer and former Fukushima resident Tetsuro Takehana released fascinating images of the abandoned, difficult-to-return zones that he captured from a helicopter and using a drone. It was as if time had stopped, Takehana said, and yet the grass and trees continue to grow. The areas surrounding Fukushima have indeed become engulfed by vegetation. Weeds creep through the cracked asphalt surface in the parking lot of a former bustling shopping mall. Vines, trees, and other overgrowth have swallowed homes and vehicles. Weeds have made their way up to the second floors of houses and parking garages. It's hard to believe that a place with such abundant wildlife is potentially deadly for humans, but due to the hazards caused by radiation contamination, most of the Fukushima exclusion zone will remain uninhabitable for a very long time. Number 3. Cape Romano dome houses. In the early 1980s, retired oil producer Bob Lee built a series of dome-shaped, solar-powered structures on Cachambas Island in Collier County, Florida. He intended to use the 6 interconnected buildings as his family's luxury vacation home, and planned for it to be entirely self-sustainable, equipped with solar panels and capable of recycling rainwater. Sounds pretty good, right? The futuristic house occupied 2,400 square feet of total living space and was considered practically hurricane-proof because of the building's domed shape. Lee's family enjoyed the $1.5 million home until they sold it in 1984. Then in 1987, they repossessed it from the buyer, remodeled it, and moved back in. When Hurricane Andrew hit in 1992, the structures remained intact, but the windows were blown out and the interior was destroyed. The Lees moved out and the ocean slowly crept up on the home, which once stood 20 feet from the shore thanks to storm damage and an eroding coastline. Lee sold the property in 2005 and warned the new buyer to construct a seawall, but the man intended to move the house further away from the water and ignored Lee's advice. Shortly thereafter, Hurricane Wilma hit, further eroding the coastline and destabilizing the home's foundation. The new owner still wanted to move the house, but was unable to obtain the necessary building permits and began being fined $250 a day for refusing to demolish it. Then Hurricane Irma caused 2 of the domes to collapse in 2017. All that remains of the weathered home are its 4 remaining partially submerged domes and a massive fine in the owner's name, courtesy of Collier County Code Enforcement. Number 2. Six Flags New Orleans. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, putting 80% of the city underwater. Today, an abandoned Six Flags theme park in New Orleans East serves as an eerie reminder of the tragic storm and a popular destination for urban explorers. After the hurricane, the 140-acre park was submerged in 4 to 7 feet of water. The rides and buildings sustained extensive wind and flood damage, causing Six Flags to close indefinitely. the park wasn't worth saving. Even before the storm, it was one of the least profitable parks owned by Six Flags. In 2006, the company declared a total loss and attempted to get out of its 75-year lease. There have been a few failed attempts to renovate and reopen the park. Southern Star Amusement announced its intention to do so in 2008, but canceled the plans the following year. Nickelodeon also entertained the idea of revamping the park, but it was quickly scrapped. Plans to install an outlet mall were also short-lived. The New Orleans mayor has rejected several other proposals for revitalizing the property. Various filmmakers took advantage of the derelict park and filmed apocalyptic movies there, including Deepwater Horizon, Jurassic World, and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Today, the decaying amusement park is overrun by nature and graffiti. The city considers it dangerous and cautions people against trespassing, as the property has been reclaimed by the Louisiana swamp and its alligators. Number 1. The Havana Zoo. The Havana Zoo opened in 1939 and is Cuba's oldest zoo. It began struggling during the country's economic downfall in the 90s and after the construction of a larger zoological park outside the capital. The zoo isn't exactly abandoned, but for a long time it was poorly maintained at best. In 2011, photographer Jan Socher released photographs of the decaying facility. The images feature depressing views, including empty, deteriorating fountains, a crocodile swimming in a polluted lagoon, and empty and rusting cages. There's an abandoned, moss-covered bear enclosure with a murky swimming area, a decaying children's amusement park, and a rotting, overgrown entrance gate. Socher stated on his website that there are no zookeepers around and that the food supply is inadequate, forcing the animals to rely on visitors for scraps of junk food. There's vegetation where it shouldn't be and none where it should be, like inside animal exhibits. Photographs on Havana tourism websites depict a much different image of a well-kept, vibrant park with healthy animals, and photographs taken by visitors indicate that conditions may have improved at the zoo in recent years. At least we hope so. Reviews remain mixed, however. Earlier this year, TripAdvisor user Amy W. described the Havana Zoo as a hellhole with dirty, cramped conditions and mistreated animals. Another reviewer said that the animals seemed healthy, but that the cages were dirty and it was hard to see. While it is not abandoned per se, it sure seems like it for the poor animals. If anyone has been to the zoo, let us know what's going on. Thanks for watching! Would you like to learn more about abandoned places? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time!